while we get in this, what I want to do is I want to start by talking about what the roster looks like. So this is for Gold Cup coming up in just about a month or two now. Um, it is 27 players deep. One player will be sent home. You can only take 26 to the tournament. So one of these players will not make it. We'll give a prediction. See who do we think that's going to be. My guess it's one of the goalkeepers. My guess is probably going to be yeah. I won't give it away. I won't spoil it. But let's just go really quick. This is a training camp roster. It's going to take place in Chicago, Illinois. In goal, we've got four of them: Matt Freese, Patrick Schulte, Zach Steffen, and Matt Turner. Very MLS strong there with Matt Turner and his recent FA Cup medal coming in to make up that group. Defenders, Max Arston is back in the mix. Serginho Dest returning from injury. Very excited for that. Alex Freeman gets his first call up, which is super exciting. He's looked really good for Orlando so far. DeJuan Jones is in there. Mark McKenzie's in there. Tim Ream again. Chris Richards and Miles Robinson make up the back line group. Then we go to the midfielders with Tyler Adams, Sebastian Berhalter, the ghost of Triple G, will never leave this team, and we love it. Johnny Cardoso, Luca De La Torre, Diego Luna back in the mix, Jack McGlynn, which is really interesting, Malik Tillman, and Sean Zawadzki. And finally, our forwards, Brendan Aronson, who looked really strong in the championship this year, Patrick Agyemang, Flo Balogun, Damian Downs, Quinn Sullivan, Brian White, the GOAT, and Haji Wright. So just off the bat, your thoughts on the roster. Don't even talk to me about who you think should have made it or who got snubbed. Give me your thoughts on what what's the ceiling for this group? How do you feel looking at this group right now?
I like the roster that they put together here. I know it's probably a controversial take knowing USMNT Twitter, but like I think it's a good mix. I mean, for a Gold Cup, it's got a lot of non-MLS players in here where I feel like at least the last few seasons, it's been heavy, if not all MLS guys in there. And they've kind of just been running that to like justifiably probably give these guys a break after they finish up their seasons. And maybe we'll touch on that a little bit more later. But I like it. It's a good mix. I think there's definitely a lot of strength in this team. I really feel like they're trying to make a statement with this Gold Cup that the Copa America was more of a fluke result than a serious problem for this team. So I feel like they're bringing a few more of the more familiar faces, more of the European guys into this team to try to get some better results here. But I like that they sprinkled in a couple of new guys in here as well. Like Damian Downs, I think is that's a new face to the team. You mentioned him before, Alex Freeman, another new face to the team. So I like it. I think it kind of checks a lot of boxes while still like, giving guys an opportunity, but like keeping the team strong where I think this is a team on paper that probably definitely can be winning the Gold Cup and arguably should be winning it.
Yeah, well, the problem is that they've got Poch instead of Greg, and we know that that's obviously been the main issue this whole time. No, but I agree with everything you're saying there, right? I'm really excited about the new faces, right? I think this is a group, and we're gonna get into this a little bit later, but everybody's been talking about, oh, this is the last real competition before we get to the World Cup. Like we should be sending our A team and all this stuff. It's the Gold Cup. I don't know if you can classify games against Trinidad and Tobago and the lesser of the CONCACAF region as meaningful minutes. And that's no disrespect, but it just ends up being that way sometimes. So I do like how they sprinkled in old and new. I'm really excited to see Serginho Dest get back in the mix. After his injury, we know what he can bring both sides of the ball, and I'm excited to see him get back into it. But yeah, you mentioned some of the new players, right? Super excited for Alex Freeman. I think he's done so well with Orlando this year and has earned this. This is a really well earned spot. Damian Downs is interesting. Not somebody I saw coming because unfortunately, my knowledge of the second Bundesliga is not up to par, evidently. But 10 goals, 5 assists in 29 appearances in the second Bundesliga. So, you know, a good showing and only starting 62% of those games and only playing in half of the available minutes of those 34 games in the Bundesliga. So he's really only played what 2,000 minutes, give or take, probably less than that. Let's see. Yeah, just like 1,800 minutes. So 15 goal contributions in 1,800 minutes at 20 years old, not bad, right? Definitely impressive. Do I think he gets a look over the likes of like Brian White or Flo Balogun? Probably not. But excited to see Brian White in there as well. obviously very well earned, has been well earned for the last couple of years now. So excited to see him getting back in the mix. And Brendan Aronson, who again looked really good for Leeds. Big focus on Pat Oggiman though, right? A guy who we're sitting here saying he's the next guy, he's the next guy. Well, he hasn't shown it at Charlotte. He hasn't shown it at the national team. He's running out of time if he wants to make this World Cup. So I think all eyes are going to be on him to say, "This is your chance, buddy. Let's go get it."
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's you could say that for a lot of the guys on this roster. I think a lot of these guys are like on the cusp right now, and this
Mhm.
is a golden opportunity for them to have a strong Gold Cup and really make it a hard choice for Poch to leave them out when it comes to the World Cup roster. Because like a lot of your key guys that are pretty much almost a shoo-in to come, barring any injuries, are not involved in this. So they're kind of like almost set in stone. And I'd say a lot of this team is kind of up in the air of like, are you going to make it? Are you not going to make it? And if even if you do make it, like, do you actually have any chance of getting game time? Or are you just there for the vibes and training? So I think this is a golden opportunity. So hopefully, players realize that and are hungry and are going to go out there and give it their best just so they can like have that chance to make an impact and get into that World Cup team. Hopefully that's kind of like the sentiment going around.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, and that's kind of the vibe that I got as well, right? You've got players who are withdrawing from the team, right? So I'm just reading on here. Yunus Musa withdraws for personal reasons. We're going to talk about Christian Pulisic here at the end. You've got other guys who are missing because Club World Cup is going on at the same time, so you're not going to see the likes of McKinney. You're not going to see the likes of Weah. You're not going to see the likes of Gio Reyna, who wasn't even included in the group anyway. But my question for you then is we're talking about what this means for these players. Who is going to feel hard done by for not making this roster, right? So there was the preliminary roster that released. It was 60 players, lots of names that obviously could not be taken to this group, but are listed as alternates, for lack of a better term, if somebody gets hurt or needs to pull out or whatever. Who on that list do you think maybe is going to feel hard done by here?
I feel like I'm gonna end up saying somebody that like clearly has stated that they are not coming or something like that.
And I'll
So
catch
like
you.
yeah, and so let me know if I do. But one so I will say this before I say anybody's name. Me personally, not because I don't think that they're as good or better or whatnot, I would personally stray away from European players right now just because I really do feel like fixture congestion is a thing, and they have been they're just coming off finishing an entire season. I really feel like they should take the proper rest and make sure that they're not hurting themselves, and certainly not for a Gold Cup. So, me personally, I'm going to stray away from picking any of the European players just because I don't, I think it's totally valid if they, need a break right now before like preseason kicks up very early on. So, to stick with MLS guys, one guy that jumped out to me was Jordy Mihailovic. I mean, I
Mhm.
think he had a monster year last year, really bounced back after his struggles in Europe. And, he's not tearing the league apart this year, but he's been solid again. I mean, he's got 8 goal contributions in 1,200 minutes so far for a Colorado team that's doing pretty solid this year. So I would definitely not complain to see him in this team. And then the second, I'll throw out one more. This is going to be kind of a deep cut one here. You'll have to let me. I'm sure you've heard of him because you're a sicko.
If you say Brad
Um,
Guzan, I'm going to kick you off of the pod.
that would be funny. That is a missed
Wouldn't it?
opportunity. I didn't
We
think
need a
about
fifth
Brad.
goalkeeper.
Yeah, we do. Brad Guzan, bring him in. I'm gonna go for Bo LaRue out
Yeah,
of San
nice.
Jose
Yep.
as just an outside shot. I don't think he'd come in and like seriously challenge to make the World Cup roster, but he has gotten his first professional minutes this season, about 1,000 of them so far for San Jose, a resurgent San Jose, mind you. And granted, again, 1,000 minutes, so take this with a grain of salt. But his per 90s look insane, like
Yep.
across the board. Like he looks like he has been phenomenal for them. I think Who Scored also had him rated as like one of the highest rated Americans so far this year. I think it was a very, very small chance, if any, that he would even get this call up. But like, if I saw his name in there, I would not be upset about that.
No, I think those are two good groups, and I think Larue's got to be in the picture soon. I mean, I watched him play a little bit for San Jose. I'm not saying I'm staying up and watching full 90 minutes, but every time he's on the ball, dude, I'm like, oh my, he's gonna make something happen here. A couple other names that jump out to me, and some in the European picture as well, right? So the big one that's been out there that I agree with, Paxton Aronson, has been. I don't want to say he's been snubbed, but he played 33 out of 34 possible games, playing 88% of the minutes for an Utrecht side who finished fourth in the Eredivisie this year. And he had 12 goal contributions. I mean, he was just all over the place. He was rated, I think, the fourth or fifth best young player in the Eredivisie this year. From whatever source that may be, I don't know, but I did see that graphic come up. Would have been nice to see what he can do in this group. The other one, maybe there are two actually really here. One maybe a stretch here. Alex Zendejas playing at a ridiculous level for Club America right now, one of the best players in that group, bar none, and he is not even being sniffed right now. Which, again, it's tough because you're sitting here and saying, well, every time we call him up, and it's the same thing with Josh Sargent, by the way. Every time we call him up, what does he do? He ghosts. Alex Dejas might
Yeah,
have been the worst U.S. men's national team player in the last pool he was a part of, which is not saying that he was poor, like bad, but he just didn't do anything to be like, yeah, you're bang on in. Would I rather have him or Diego Luna? I'm taking Diego Luna all day long, right? But
100%.
when you're thinking, okay, how does club form play into this? You would think that they'd be in the conversation, right? And one last one, I think Brian Gutierrez probably is feeling a little hard done by as well. He's looked all right for Chicago, but again, I don't think all right gets you into this camp. I think they're looking for the next year who's going to take that step and be a part of it, right? So the likes of guys like Paxton Aronson, for example, might be, and Bo LaRue, for example, might be a next cycle, right? They might not be in the picture just because they're like, all right, we don't have time to get him up to speed in the international game because Paxton Aronson has one cap in 2023. So, he might not be up to the speed yet. And I'm not saying I know what Poch is thinking, but that's kind of where when I see these players not involved, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, maybe, I'm looking at the roster and it feels very, this might be a weird way to describe it, but it feels very central. Like, I really
Yep.
don't see many wingers on this team. I mean, I know there's probably guys that can play out on the wing, but not like true out and out wingers like Pooley or like Weah are. It's like a lot of more central midfielders and then strikers. So it makes me think maybe Puch is kind of like playing around with the tactics a little bit instead of just kind of sticking with the 4-2-3-1. So if that is the case, maybe it makes sense why you don't see like a Gutierrez and Deas in here. Because I think I mean, Guti can play centrally, but I
Mhm.
think they're like more wingers. But I really like the Paxton shout too. That's a good call.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's impossible to take. Again, remember how, like in 2014, how down bad we were. We're like, oh, who are we gonna take? Jurgen's gonna take every German American that he can find because he doesn't trust anybody in MLS, and there was really no arguing it, right? Now we're here. We're like, all right, we got all these MLS guys that definitely can compete. We've got all these guys in Europe who are on the fringe. And again, think of the players we're not bringing, right? We're not bringing McKennie. We're not bringing Musa, who has not looked very good this year from all the reports I'm seeing. Again, I'm not watching Milan week in and week out, but he hasn't stood out being like, oh, this is one of the best players, right? You're not taking Anthony Robinson at the left because he's been banged up and injured. You're not taking Joe Scally because you kind of know what you get with him already, right? So
Mhm.
I, I guess before we go into the big topic of the day, what are your expectations? I mean, you kind of mentioned this already, but what are your expectations for the group and what is your concern level if we don't reach them?
I mean, I think they need to win it,
Mm-hmm.
personally. I think even if this isn't your A team, this is still a team. This is still a team that is, I would say, better, and I would almost even say significantly better than the team that won it 2 Gold Cups ago. And, so I think that's kind of the bar. I feel like this team with an experienced coach like Poch should be winning this. And if they didn't, I would definitely have some concerns, mainly surrounding Poch, not necessarily the guys that are in this group, but I would start to have some questions about, is Poch the right guy for this? Can he make it work on the international stage? Because then that would be two competitions, or really three, isn't it? Because he lost the Nations League too.
Yep.
Um, 3 competitions in a row where we'd be disappointing. Like, at some point, you kind of got like it doesn't matter what Poch's CV was, but when he joined, you really got to start asking questions. And I'm not saying like, oh, fire him right before the World Cup. I think that would be a huge mistake, but you really got to wonder, was this the right call to go with him should they have looked for someone with more international experience instead of someone who's only been successful really at the club level?
Yeah, yeah. I do want to also put out there that I don't necessarily know if so I wouldn't what I guess what I'll say is I wouldn't sound the alarm if we don't do well. I think it would be disappointing. I think all the things that you're saying are true, but the Gold Cup is traditionally a B or a C level roster, right? I mean, you just mentioned who we won it with 2 years or two cycles ago was an entire it wasn't even the best players out of MLS. It was like the fringe players to be in the January camp. Like it was such a B level roster and we won the whole thing. So you're if we come out of this group and again we fall short, there are definitely questions to be asked. That being said, I think we've gotten rid of some of the ego, for lack of a better term, right? The players who think that they just deserve to be there to be there. So I do think you see a step up in energy and in fight. Like guys like Sebastian Berhalter, who has always been overlooked, has now worked his way into the team. If he's going up against guys like Johnny Cardoso and Tyler Adams for that last spot in the pivots double pivot six, you know he's going to fight tooth and nail for everything that he's got. He's not watching players run by and be like, "Oh, can't get that. Sorry." He is going to fight to get on that spot. He wants to be there, right? Same deal with guys like Brian White, right? Same deal with guys like Alex Freeman, right? These players who are not usually in this group now are like, oh, I might have a chance here. Let me go for it. So I think I would look less upon the results and more upon the energy, the attitude, the approach, right? Who wants to be there, right? You're going to get guys like Diego Luna who are going to go out and just ball out, right? You're going to get guys like that who are just going to fight for everything, and who can you keep with that to like keep that culture, I guess, in the locker room, right? You don't want to take guys like Diego Luna and be like, oh yeah, sorry you can't make it. We're gonna put Gio Reyna on, who walks around 70 minutes and complains when we get taken off and doesn't do much, right? Again, that's just an example from obviously the last time he had an issue, right? But I'm excited to see what I hope to see is a team that is ready to fight and defend the badge itself, not just be there to be there. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you too, because like if you think about 2 cycles back, like we found a lot of kind of consistent mainstay A team USMNT players from that Gold Cup. Like that's where Miles Robinson kind of burst onto the international scene. That's where Matt Turner burst onto the international scene. So like, who's to say we don't find a couple of those guys from this window? Even if we don't win the whole thing. I mean, I still agree that it would be disappointing if we didn't, but at the very least, maybe we find a couple guys that are really pushing themselves to get into that first team and be consistent players there.